Marcus Thompson had always been a man with big dreams and an even bigger work ethic. Growing up in a modest neighborhood, he learned early on that success wasn't handed to anyone. It had to be earned. His journey started in a tiny apartment where his family often struggled to make ends meet. But Marcus was determined not to let circumstances define him. He spent countless hours studying, tinkering with gadgets, and teaching himself how things worked. By the time he graduated high school, he already had a knack for fixing computers and solving technical problems. His hard work paid off when he landed a scholarship to a prestigious university. There, Marcus dove headfirst into computer science, working late nights coding and building projects that caught the attention of professors and peers alike. After graduation, he didn't stop. Instead, he poured all his energy into creating a tech startup aimed at making everyday tasks easier for people. It wasn't easy. There were moments when funding ran dry and doubts crept in, but Marcus refused to give up. Slowly but surely, his company gained traction. Within 5 years, it became one of the most talked about startups in the industry. The turning point came when a major corporation offered to buy his business for millions. For many, this would have been the ultimate goal, a chance to retire young and live comfortably. But Marcus wasn't like everyone else. Money wasn't his end game. Impact was. He saw this sale as an opportunity to branch out, to invest in other ventures that could improve lives and communities. That's when he stumbled upon the idea of buying a car dealership. To Marcus, cars weren't just machines. They represented freedom, mobility, and possibility. Owning a dealership felt like a way to connect with people on a deeper level, offering them something tangible that could change their lives. Plus, he loved the challenge of taking something old and giving it new life. So, after months of research and negotiations, Marcus purchased an upscale car dealership located right in the heart of downtown. It wasn't perfect. The previous owner hadn't kept up with modern trends and sales numbers were steadily declining. But Marcus saw potential. He envisioned sleek showrooms filled with happy customers, cutting-edge technology integrated into every corner, and a team of employees who genuinely cared about service. On the morning of his first visit to the dealership, Marcus woke up feeling excited yet nervous. This was the beginning of a new chapter, and he wanted to get it right. He decided against wearing a suit or anything formal because he wanted to blend in, to see how things operated without drawing attention to himself. If anyone asked, he planned to say he was there to look around, maybe ask questions about some of the vehicles. The goal was simple: observe, learn, and plan for improvements. As he drove toward the dealership, Marcus couldn't help but think about how far he'd come. From fixing broken laptops in his childhood bedroom to owning a multi-million-dollar enterprise, life had taken him places he never imagined. Now here he was, ready to take on another challenge. When he pulled into the parking lot of the dealership, he parked his car near the entrance and took a deep breath. The building looked impressive from the outside, with large glass windows, showcasing rows of shiny luxury vehicles. Customers strolled through the showroom, chatting with salespeople while admiring the latest models. But as Marcus stepped out of his car, he suddenly felt self-conscious. Dressed in jeans and a hoodie, he realized he might stick out, not in a good way. Most of the staff wore crisp suits, and the clientele seemed well-dressed too. Still, he reminded himself why he chose this outfit: to stay low-key and avoid being treated differently because of his appearance. With that thought in mind, he walked confidently toward the entrance, ready to see what awaited him inside. Little did he know, this decision, to dress casually and go unnoticed, would lead to an encounter that would test his patience, reveal ugly truths about human nature, and ultimately set the stage for a dramatic transformation. Marcus entered the dealership unaware that his presence would spark a chain reaction, forcing everyone around him to confront their biases and rethink what it truly means to welcome someone into a space. What happened next would become a story he'd tell for years to come, not just as a lesson for others, but as a reminder to himself of the power of resilience and grace in the face of adversity. As Marcus stepped into the dealership, he was immediately struck by the polished elegance of the showroom. Rows of gleaming luxury cars lined the space, their metallic finishes catching the light streaming through the massive glass windows. The air smelled faintly of leather and polish, a scent that screamed exclusivity. Customers moved between the vehicles, pointing at features and speaking with salespeople dressed in sharp suits. It all seemed picture-perfect, exactly what Marcus had envisioned when he bought the place. But as he wandered deeper into the showroom, something felt off. Despite the beauty surrounding him, the atmosphere carried an undertone of stiffness, almost like the kind of environment where people were more concerned about appearances than genuine connection. Marcus shrugged it off, thinking perhaps he was overanalyzing things after such a big purchase. He continued walking, stopping near a sleek black Mercedes-Benz that caught his eye. Leaning slightly forward, he admired its design, imagining how potential customers might feel standing in his shoes right now. Unbeknownst to Marcus, his casual attire hadn't gone unnoticed. Daryl Simmons, the dealership's longtime manager, stood behind a desk at the far end of the room, observing the scene with a practiced eye. Daryl prided himself on running a tight ship. In his mind, the dealership wasn't just a business, it was a status symbol, a place reserved for those who belonged among the elite. Over the years, he'd developed a knack for spotting the right kind of customer, and unfortunately for Marcus, he didn't fit the mold. Dressed in a hoodie and jeans, Marcus looked nothing like the typical client Daryl catered to. To Daryl, Marcus appeared out of place, even suspicious. Without bothering to approach politely or inquire if Marcus needed assistance, Daryl made his way over with a dismissive expression plastered across his face. As he drew closer, Marcus sensed the shift in energy, but chose to ignore it, still, engrossed in examining the car. "Excuse me?" Daryl said curtly, his tone dripping with condescension. Marcus turned around, startled by the interruption. Before he could respond, Daryl continued, "I'm sorry, but this isn't really the type of establishment you're looking for. You might want to try somewhere else." The words hit Marcus, like a punch to the gut. For a moment, he simply stared at Daryl, unsure whether he'd heard correctly. Had this man really just assumed he didn't belong here? That he couldn't possibly be interested in these cars, or worse, that he couldn't afford them? "I'm actually here to check out the operation," Marcus replied calmly, trying to keep his voice steady despite the rising frustration bubbling inside him. "I thought I'd take a look around and see how things are running." Daryl barely blinked. Instead, he crossed his arms and leaned back slightly, his body language broadcasting skepticism. "Look, I don't mean to be rude, but we're very busy catering to our clients. If you're not serious about making a purchase, I'll have to ask you to leave." Marcus opened his mouth to explain further, to tell Daryl exactly who he was, but stopped himself. Something about the situation gnawed at him. Was this really how they treated everyone who didn't fit their narrow definition of a serious buyer? Or was it something more insidious? Either way, Marcus decided to play along for now, curious to see how far Daryl would go. "Fine," Marcus said finally, forcing a tight smile. "I'll head out." He slipped his hands into his pockets and walked toward the exit, acutely aware of Daryl watching his every move. As he pushed open the glass door and stepped outside, he couldn't shake the feeling of indignation simmering beneath the surface. This wasn't just about being asked to leave. It was about the underlying assumption that someone like him couldn't possibly belong in a place like this. Once outside, Marcus paused for a moment, leaning against the hood of his car. He pulled out his phone and dialed his lawyer. "Hey, can you confirm the paperwork for the dealership went through?" he asked, his tone clipped. A few moments later, the confirmation came. Marcus officially owned the dealership. Every decision, every employee, including Daryl, was now under his control. With renewed determination, Marcus straightened up and took a deep breath. He knew what he had to do next. This wasn't just about settling a personal score, it was about sending a message. No one should ever be treated this way based on assumptions about their appearance or background. And if Daryl thought he could get away with dismissing someone so casually, then he was about to learn a valuable lesson, one that would resonate far beyond this single encounter. Inside the dealership, Daryl returned to his desk, feeling smug about how he'd handled the situation. To him, it was a victory. a reminder that he was the gatekeeper of this exclusive world. He recounted the story to a couple of colleagues, laughing as he described the random guy who'd tried to wander in uninvited. None of them questioned his actions. After all, this was how things had always been done here. What none of them realized, however, was that their world was about to change dramatically. The man they'd dismissed so carelessly wasn't just another passerby. He was the new owner. And Marcus Thompson wasn't the kind of person to let prejudice slide unnoticed. By the time he walked back into the dealership, flanked by his attorney and wearing a suit that commanded respect, the stage was set for a confrontation that would leave everyone reeling and force them to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves and the culture they'd helped create. After confirming his ownership of the dealership, Marcus took a few minutes to collect his thoughts. He knew this moment would be pivotal, not just for him personally, but for the entire business. The way Daryl had treated him wasn't just an isolated incident. It was symptomatic of a deeper issue, one that needed to be addressed head-on. Still, Marcus understood that anger wouldn't solve anything. If he wanted to make a real impact, he'd need to approach the situation with calmness and authority. With his attorney by his side, Marcus returned to the dealership. This time he walked in wearing a tailored suit that exuded confidence and professionalism. His posture was straight, his steps deliberate. Gone was the casual demeanor from earlier. Now he carried himself like the owner he was. As he entered the showroom, all eyes turned toward him. Employees paused mid-conversation, customers looked up curiously, and even the hum of activity seemed to quiet down. It was as if everyone could sense that something significant was about to happen. Daryl, seated at his desk near the back, glanced up and froze. For a split second, recognition flickered across his face, followed quickly by confusion. Wasn't this the same man he'd kicked out less than an hour ago? But before Daryl could process what was happening, Marcus strode confidently toward the center of the showroom, where a small crowd of employees had begun to gather. "Good afternoon, everyone," Marcus began, his voice clear and commanding. "My name is Marcus Thompson, and I am the new owner of this dealership." Gasps rippled through the room. Some employees exchanged stunned glances, while others whispered frantically to their colleagues. Daryl's face went pale, his mouth opening slightly as if to say something but unable to form words. Marcus continued, unfazed by the reactions around him. "I came here today intending to observe how things are run, to get a feel for the culture and operations. Unfortunately, my visit didn't go quite as planned." He paused, letting his words sink in. Then, turning slightly toward Daryl, he added, "In fact, I was asked to leave shortly after arriving." The silence in the room grew heavier. Everyone knew exactly who was responsible for sending Marcus away, and all eyes shifted uncomfortably toward Daryl. The manager shifted in his seat, visibly sweating under the weight of the collective gaze. Finally, finding his voice, he stood up and stammered, "Sir, I didn't realize who you were. I thought—" "You thought wrong," Marcus interrupted firmly, though not unkindly. "And that's precisely why we're having this conversation. When I walked in earlier, I wasn't greeted or offered help. Instead, I was judged based on how I looked and told this wasn't the kind of place for me. Let me be very clear. No customer or person should ever be treated that way. Not here, not anywhere." His tone softened slightly as he addressed the group. "This dealership represents more than just cars. It's a reflection of our values, our priorities, and how we treat people. Every interaction matters, whether it's with a potential buyer, a curious visitor, or someone simply passing through. Respect isn't optional. It's essential." As Marcus spoke, the atmosphere in the room shifted. At first, there was tension, embarrassment, and even fear among the employees. But gradually, they began to listen, not just to his words, but to the conviction behind them. Many nodded in agreement, realizing that Marcus wasn't there to berate them, but to inspire change. Even Daryl, still standing awkwardly near his desk, seemed to deflate, his initial defensiveness giving way to remorse. Once Marcus finished speaking, he invited questions and comments. One young sales associate raised her hand hesitantly. "What happens now?" she asked, glancing nervously between Marcus and Daryl. "That's a great question," Marcus replied. "Now we rebuild. We start by setting new standards for customer service, inclusivity, and professionalism. Mistakes have been made, yes, but what matters most is how we respond to them. I believe in second chances, but accountability is key. Moving forward, everyone will play a role in shaping the future of this dealership." He then turned his attention specifically to Daryl. "Mr. Simmons, I appreciate your years of service to this company, but actions have consequences. You'll remain in your position for now, but under probation. Additionally, you'll attend mandatory sensitivity training sessions to better understand the importance of treating every individual with dignity and respect. Do you understand?" Daryl nodded vigorously, relief washing over his features. "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. I promise this won't happen again." Marcus gave him a measured look. "See that it doesn't." With the immediate confrontation resolved, Marcus spent the next hour touring the facility, introducing himself to employees and learning more about their roles. He made it a point to engage with each person individually, asking about their experiences working at the dealership and listening attentively to their feedback. His genuine interest helped ease some of the lingering tension, and by the end of the day, many staff members felt cautiously optimistic about the changes ahead. Meanwhile, word of the incident spread quickly throughout the building. By lunchtime, nearly everyone knew the story of how the new owner had been mistaken for an unwelcome visitor, and how Daryl's poor judgment had nearly cost him his job. While some criticized Daryl privately, others admitted they might have reacted similarly in his shoes. The realization that biases could creep into everyday interactions left many unsettled, but also motivated to do better. Later that evening, as Marcus reviewed notes from his first day, he reflected on the events that had unfolded. Yes, the situation had been frustrating, even humiliating, but it had also presented an opportunity to lead by example, to challenge outdated mindsets, and to create a workplace culture rooted in fairness and respect. As difficult as the day had been, Marcus couldn't help but feel hopeful. Change wouldn't happen overnight, but with persistence and commitment, he believed the dealership could become something truly special. Little did he know, this was only the beginning. Over the coming weeks, Marcus would implement sweeping reforms, hire new leadership focused on diversity and inclusion, and host community events aimed at rebuilding trust. What started as a single misstep would transform into a powerful lesson about the dangers of assumptions and the incredible potential of redemption. The days following Marcus's dramatic entrance as the new owner were a whirlwind of activity. The dealership buzzed with anticipation, uncertainty, and a mix of emotions among the staff. For some employees, the revelation that they had dismissed their own boss was embarrassing but also eye-opening. For others, it sparked conversations about how they interacted with customers and each other. Marcus wasted no time in turning this moment into an opportunity for growth. On his second day at the dealership, Marcus called another meeting, this time with a clear agenda, outlining the changes he planned to implement. He stood in front of the gathered team, his presence calm, yet commanding. "Yesterday was tough, for all of us," he began. "But I want you to know that my goal isn't to punish anyone. It's to build something better, something we can all be proud of." He went on to explain his vision for the dealership. First, he announced the creation of a new position, a diversity and inclusion officer. This role would focus on fostering a welcoming environment for both employees and customers, ensuring that everyone felt valued regardless of their background. "We're not just selling cars here," Marcus emphasized. "We're building relationships, and those relationships start with respect." Next, he introduced plans for comprehensive training programs. Every employee, from salespeople to mechanics, would participate in workshops designed to address unconscious bias, improve communication skills, and enhance customer service. These sessions wouldn't be optional. They were mandatory for everyone, including Daryl. Speaking directly to the manager, Marcus reiterated, "This isn't about pointing fingers. It's about learning and growing together. I expect your full cooperation." Darrell nodded solemnly, still visibly shaken by the events of the previous day. Though part of him resented being singled out, another part recognized the fairness in Marcus's approach. After all, if roles were reversed, wouldn't he have done the same? Slowly, Darrell began to see this as a chance to prove himself, to show that he could rise above his mistakes and lead by example. Marcus also announced plans to revamp the dealership's marketing strategy. Up until now, advertisements had catered almost exclusively to affluent buyers, often alienating broader segments of the community. Marcus wanted to change that. He proposed campaigns highlighting accessibility, inclusivity, and the idea that owning a luxury car wasn't reserved for a select few. It was achievable for anyone willing to work toward it. "Let's make this place a destination for dreamers," he said, earning nods of approval from the team. To further bridge the gap between the dealership and the local community, Marcus organized a grand reopening event scheduled for the following month. The idea was simple yet impactful. Invite residents from all walks of life to explore the showroom, test drive vehicles, and learn about financing options tailored to different budgets. Food trucks, live music, and family-friendly activities would add a festive touch, transforming the dealership into a hub of connection rather than exclusivity. As preparations for the event got underway, Marcus rolled up his sleeves and worked alongside the staff. He didn't just issue orders from behind a desk. He joined them in cleaning, arranging displays, and brainstorming creative ideas. His hands-on approach earned him respect and admiration from even the most skeptical employees. They saw firsthand that he wasn't just there to give speeches. He genuinely cared about making the dealership succeed. One afternoon, while helping set up promotional banners in the parking lot, Marcus found himself working next to Darrell. The two men exchanged awkward glances before Darrell finally broke the silence. "I owe you an apology," he said, his voice low but sincere. "What I did, it was wrong. Not just because you're the owner, but because it was disrespectful to any person who walks through those doors. I'm sorry." Marcus paused, considering the weight of Darrell's words. Then, after a moment, he replied, "Thank you for saying that. Apologies mean something when they come from the heart, but actions matter more. Show me and everyone else that you've learned from this. That's how you'll earn back trust." Darrell nodded, determination flickering in his eyes. From that point forward, he threw himself into the changes Marcus had outlined. He attended every training session, asked thoughtful questions, and even volunteered to help organize the grand reopening event. Watching him evolve, many employees couldn't help but feel inspired. If someone like Darrell, a man who had once embodied the old guard, could change, then maybe there was hope for everyone. Meanwhile, excitement around the dealership continued to grow. Customers noticed the shift too, where once interactions had been transactional and impersonal. Employees now greeted visitors warmly, taking the time to understand their needs and preferences. Testimonials poured in, praising the improved customer experience. One elderly woman wrote a heartfelt note thanking the staff for patiently guiding her through the process of buying her first luxury car. Another young father described how the ECE team helped him find a vehicle that fit his growing family's budget without compromising quality. By the time the grand reopening arrived, the transformation was undeniable. Hundreds of people streamed into the dealership, marveling at the vibrant atmosphere. Kids laughed as they climbed into cars during mock test drives. Parents chatted with friendly sales associates, and local leaders delivered speeches celebrating the dealership's renewed commitment to inclusivity. Marcus stood near the entrance, shaking hands and welcoming guests, his pride evident in every smile. At one point during the event, a reporter approached him for an interview. "Mr. Thompson, what inspired these changes?" she asked, gesturing toward the bustling crowd. Marcus thought for a moment before answering. "Sometimes it takes a hard lesson to realize where we're falling short," he said. "When I walked in here that first day, I didn't just see a problem. I saw an opportunity to remind ourselves why we're here, to serve people, to treat them with dignity, no matter who they are or where they come from. That's the kind of legacy I want to leave behind." His response resonated deeply, not only with the reporter but with everyone listening. By the end of the evening, news outlets were buzzing about the dealership's remarkable turnaround. Social media posts flooded in, praising Marcus's leadership and the positive energy emanating from the business. What had started as a humiliating encounter had blossomed into a story of redemption, resilience, and renewal. As the final guests departed and the lights dimmed inside the showroom, Marcus took a quiet moment to reflect. He knew there was still work to be done. The journey toward true inclusivity was ongoing, but he also knew they were on the right path. The dealership wasn't just a place to buy cars anymore. It was a symbol of possibility, a reminder that change was always within reach if you had the courage to embrace it. And for Marcus, that made every challenge worth it. In the weeks and months following the grand reopening, the dealership transformed in ways that went far beyond shiny new banners or updated training programs. It wasn't just about appearances anymore. It was about substance. Marcus's leadership had set a tone of accountability, inclusivity, and genuine care for both employees and customers. The ripple effects of this cultural shift were felt throughout every corner of the business. Daryl Simmons became one of the most surprising success stories. At first, many doubted whether he could truly change after years of running the dealership with an iron fist and rigid expectations. But Daryl surprised them all. After attending the sensitivity training sessions, he began to see things from a different perspective. He realized how often his assumptions about people had shaped his decisions, not just when it came to Marcus, but in countless other interactions over the years. Determined to make amends, Daryl threw himself into mentoring younger staff members, sharing what he'd learned and encouraging them to approach their work with empathy. One day during a team meeting, Daryl stood up to share a personal story. "I used to think I knew best," he admitted, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "But I was wrong, really wrong. And if I can learn from my mistakes, anyone can. Let's not wait until someone calls us out to do better. Let's start doing better now, for ourselves, for our customers, and for each other." His vulnerability earned him respect from colleagues who had once viewed him as unapproachable. Employees began to see Daryl not as the stern manager who enforced rules, without question, but as a leader willing to grow alongside them. This newfound camaraderie strengthened the team dynamic, creating an environment where collaboration thrived and creativity flourished. The diversity and inclusion officer Marcus hired, Samantha Hayes, played a pivotal role in driving these changes forward. With a background in organizational psychology, Samantha brought fresh ideas and strategies to the table. She introduced initiatives like monthly community connection events, where local organizations were invited to partner with the dealership on charitable projects. One such project involved donating refurbished cars to families in need, giving them reliable transportation to jobs, schools, and medical appointments. These efforts didn't just improve lives, they also built goodwill within the community, solidifying the dealership's reputation as a force for good. Employees embraced these opportunities enthusiastically. Many participated in volunteer days, organizing fundraisers or helping refurbish vehicles. Even the mechanics got involved, teaching teenagers from underprivileged neighborhoods basic car maintenance skills. These experiences reminded everyone why they loved working at the dealership. It wasn't just about selling cars, it was about making a difference. Customers noticed the difference too. Sales soared as word spread about the dealership's welcoming atmosphere and commitment to service. People weren't just buying cars, they were becoming part of a larger mission. Testimonials poured in from satisfied buyers praising not only the quality of the vehicles, but also the kindness and professionalism of the staff. One customer wrote, "This isn't just a dealership, it's a family. From the moment I walked in, I felt valued and respected." That's rare these days. Marcus took pride in watching the transformation unfold, but he never let himself rest on his laurels. He made it a point to stay accessible, regularly walking the showroom floor to chat with employees and greet customers. His presence reassured everyone that he was still invested in the day-to-day operations, even as the business continued to grow. When challenges arose, and they inevitably did, he tackled them head-on, always prioritizing solutions over blame. For example, when a misunderstanding between two sales associates threatened to escalate into a conflict, Marcus stepped in to mediate. Rather than reprimanding either party, he facilitated a conversation that allowed both individuals to express their concerns openly. By the end of the discussion, they had resolved their differences and even agreed to collaborate on future projects. Moments like these reinforced the importance of open communication and mutual respect. Outside the dealership, Marcus became a sought-after speaker, sharing his story at conferences and community forums. He spoke candidly about the incident that had sparked the dealership's transformation, using it as a powerful reminder of the dangers of snap judgments and implicit bias. "We're all human," he would say, "and humans make mistakes. What sets us apart is how we choose to respond. Do we double down on our biases or do we use those moments to grow? I believe growth is always possible, if we're willing to listen." His message resonated deeply, earning him invitations to speak at universities, corporate retreats, and nonprofit events. Through these engagements, Marcus expanded his influence beyond the dealership, inspiring others to adopt similar practices in their own workplaces. He often joked that he'd gone from being the guy in the hoodie to the guy with a microphone, but his humility remained intact. No matter how large his platform grew, he stayed grounded, crediting his team for the dealership's success. Back at the dealership, life settled into a rhythm of progress and positivity. Monthly meetings included updates on diversity metrics, customer satisfaction scores, and employee feedback surveys. These numbers told a story of consistent improvement, validating the hard work everyone had put in. Morale soared as employees celebrated milestones together, from record-breaking sales months to successful charity drives. Even small gestures made a big impact. For instance, Marcus introduced a wall of gratitude near the entrance, where customers and staff could leave notes of appreciation for one another. Over time, the wall filled with heartfelt messages. "Thank you for making me feel welcome," read one. "You helped turn my dream into reality," said another. Reading these words reminded everyone why they showed up to work every day, to create meaningful connections and leave a lasting impression. As the year drew to a close, the dealership hosted its annual holiday party, a tradition Marcus revived with a twist. Instead of limiting attendance to employees, he invited customers and community partners to join the celebration. The event featured live music, delicious food, and awards recognizing outstanding contributions from staff members. Daryl received a standing ovation when Marcus presented him with the Leadership Growth Award, acknowledging his journey from defensiveness to inclusivity. Standing at the podium, Marcus reflected on everything they had accomplished together. "When I first walked into this building, I didn't know what to expect," he said, his voice warm with gratitude. "What I found was potential, not just in the cars we sell, but in the people who make this place run. Each of you has played a role in shaping the future of this dealership. Together, we've proven that change is possible, no matter how daunting it may seem." The room erupted in applause, a testament to the unity and resilience that now defined the dealership. As Marcus looked out at the smiling faces, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but he knew they were ready to face whatever came next. Together. What had started as a humiliating encounter had evolved into a beacon of hope, proving that even the most challenging moments could lead to extraordinary outcomes. For Marcus, Daryl, and everyone else involved, the dealership wasn't just a workplace. It was a testament to the power of redemption, teamwork, and unwavering belief in the possibility of change. Months turned into years, and the dealership continued to thrive under Marcus's leadership. What had once been a struggling business clinging to outdated practices was now a shining example of innovation, inclusivity, and community engagement. The transformation wasn't just evident in the numbers, though sales figures soared and customer satisfaction ratings hit record highs, but in the way people felt when they walked through the doors. It was no longer just a place to buy cars. It was a space where dreams were nurtured, relationships were built, and lives were changed. For Marcus, success wasn't measured solely by profit margins or accolades. It was about impact, the kind that rippled outward, touching not only those directly involved but also the broader community. He often reminded his team that their work extended far beyond selling vehicles. "We're helping people move forward," he'd say during morning meetings. Whether it's a single mom needing reliable transportation for her kids or a young professional taking the next step in their career, we play a role in making those moments happen. One of the most rewarding aspects of Marcus's journey was watching how others grew alongside him. Daryl Simmons, once the embodiment of rigid standards and misplaced assumptions, had blossomed into an advocate for change. His transformation wasn't just personal, it inspired others to reflect on their own biases and behaviors. Daryl became known as the heart of the dealership, always ready with a kind word or thoughtful gesture. Customers frequently praised his attentiveness, noting how he went above and beyond to ensure their needs were met. Daryl's evolution even caught the attention of industry leaders. At a national automotive conference, Marcus nominated him for an award recognizing outstanding contributions to workplace culture. When Daryl's name was announced as the winner, tears welled up in his eyes as he accepted the trophy. "This isn't just my story," he said humbly during his acceptance speech. "It's ours, without Marcus's belief in second chances. And, without the support of this incredible team, I wouldn't be standing here today. Thank you for teaching me that growth is possible at any age." The ripple effects of the dealership's cultural shift reached far beyond its walls. Local schools began partnering with the business to provide internships for students interested in mechanics, sales, and marketing. Families who had once felt excluded from luxury car ownership found affordable financing options tailored to their budgets. Even small businesses benefited, as the dealership collaborated with them to sponsor events and promote economic development in the area. Marcus remained deeply connected to the community, regularly attending town hall meetings and participating in initiatives aimed at addressing systemic inequities. His story became a symbol of what could be achieved when humility met determination. People admired him not because he was perfect, he openly admitted he made mistakes, but because he used those missteps as opportunities to learn and grow. In interviews, he often shared the lesson he'd learned that fateful day. Assumptions can blind us to the truth, but if we're willing to listen and adapt, we can turn challenges into catalysts for change. The dealership itself became a hub of innovation, incorporating cutting-edge technology to enhance the customer experience. Virtual reality test drives allowed buyers to explore vehicles remotely, while AI-powered tools helped match customers with cars perfectly suited to their lifestyles. Yet despite these advancements, Marcus ensured that human connection remained at the core of every interaction. Sales associates were trained to focus less on closing deals and more on understanding the unique stories behind each purchase. As the years passed, Marcus occasionally reflected on the incident that had sparked it all. While it had been painful, at the time he couldn't imagine his life or the dealership's future without it. That moment of rejection had forced him to confront uncomfortable truths about bias and privilege, ultimately shaping the leader he became. He often joked that if someone had told him back then he'd one day deliver keynote speeches and mentor hundreds of employees, he'd have laughed in disbelief. But life had a funny way of turning obstacles into opportunities. One particularly memorable milestone came 5 years after Marcus purchased the dealership. To celebrate, he organized a special event called 5 Years Forward, inviting past and present employees, customers, and community members to come together for a night of reflection and gratitude. The evening featured heartfelt speeches, photo displays chronicling the dealership's journey, and a surprise announcement. Marcus planned to establish a scholarship fund for aspiring entrepreneurs from underserved backgrounds. "I've been lucky enough to chase my dreams," he told the crowd, his voice filled with emotion. "But I know not everyone has that chance. This scholarship is my way of paying it forward, to give others the tools and resources they need to succeed. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that talent and potential exist everywhere. We just have to create pathways for them to shine." The applause that followed was thunderous, a testament to the deep respect and admiration Marcus had earned over the years. As attendees mingled afterward, many shared stories of how the dealership had impacted their lives. A teenage girl spoke about how the mechanic apprenticeship program had sparked her passion for engineering. An elderly man recounted how the staff had gone out of their way to help him find a car that fit his limited mobility needs. Each story reinforced the importance of purpose-driven leadership, a philosophy Marcus embodied every day. Looking ahead, Marcus knew there would always be room for improvement. No organization was ever truly finished evolving. But he took comfort in knowing that the foundation they'd built was strong, one rooted in values like respect, empathy, and resilience. He encouraged his team to keep pushing boundaries, reminding them that true progress required constant effort and collaboration. On quiet evenings, when the showroom lights dimmed and the hustle of the day faded away, Marcus sometimes stood alone among the gleaming rows of cars. He thought about how far they'd come, the challenges they'd faced, the lessons they'd learned, and the lives they'd touched. It wasn't just about the vehicles lining the floor, it was about the journeys they represented. For Marcus, the dealership wasn't just a business, it was a testament to the power of perseverance, compassion, and belief in the possibility of change. And so, as the sun set on another successful year, Marcus smiled to himself, knowing that the best was yet to come. The road ahead might hold twists and turns, but with a team united by shared values and a commitment to excellence, anything was possible. After all, the greatest journeys weren't defined by destinations. They were shaped by the people who traveled together along the way.